Hello, Time Agent Brendan back in some downtown saloon somewhere. Shh. Have you noticed the same spies are there? Well, today, Tales of the TARDIS back on Thursday, 8 p.m. Are you excited? Look, I think it's fair to say, look, RTD, will you stop looting and plundering the classic treasures from Doctor Who? Please? I mean, like the archaeologists of old, the BBC and RTD are plundering the treasures of classic Who. I mean, we mourned, didn't we? We mourned about the deletion of, some of the classic episodes, them going missing, being burned, being binned. And in a funny sort of way, isn't this what they're doing to our franchise anyway? My saloon yesterday addressed certain things I won't repeat, don't worry. But when you look at the Tales of the TARDIS and the fact that they're going to do, and don't worry, I'll go into the details, the omnibus, chopping it down, various things, it starts to get you worried and on edge. And this is where I feel about this. So yes, the news is we've got, aren't we lucky people? We've got Tales of the TARDIS to look at on Thursday. And it says 1 hour, 15 minutes. Do the maths. A 4-part episode story with a 5 minute intro. That's 1 hour 50. Let's have a look. 1 hour 45. And it's been chopped down by half an hour. So we've lost an episode, basically, of Doctor Who. Definitely lost an episode of Doctor Who. So that's what we've got to look forward to. Now, they say that this episode is remastered. Now, again, as a Doctor Who fan, we can live with that, can't we? A remastered episode, yeah, they've dollied it up. They've made it acceptable for broadcast in 2024. I can live with that. The thing, and I've got plenty to say about this, actually, because when you look at the details, there's a lot, actually, that worries me, especially with the form they've got. So, obviously, the executive producer, Phil Collinson, the one of many. Have you seen how many executive producers Doctor Who's got now? Talk about bloating at the top. Revisiting the rich history of Doctor Who was endlessly thrilling, and this is no exception. Yeah, plundering it, nicking it, getting your name all over it, putting your interpretation on it, I think is how I'd put it. It's so exciting to bring back Tales of the TARDIS again and to revisit a classic enemy of the Doctor. By the way, that's something you can do on iPlayer now, and I'm really appreciative of that. That was a good idea by RTD. But, you just click a button. You don't have to have this, lead the horse to water nonsense. But that's where we're going with it. Now, the premise is this time, because before in the Tales of the TARDIS, we've had some old companions, etc. This time, we have, just before the nail-biting finale of Empire of Death, Millie Gibson's Ruby Sunday and Ncuti Gatwa's 15th Doctor have a pause to reflect as they pause in battle, reflecting on their recent slew of adventures, and then they move into showing you Pyramids of Mars. You know the form now when you've seen Tales of the TARDIS. But, and it says, that they're going to have a slew of new special effects. It's going to be omnibus, but chopped down. I've got a real concern about this. I'm going to throw them in there, and you'll hear my argument if you can give me your time. Thank you. I'm concerned it's going to be dumbed down again. I'm concerned, why does it have to be shorter? When they did the Daleks in colour, and I'm going to come to that, they really chopped and butchered it and remastered it in a way as well, recrafted it, reimagined it. Pyramids of Mars is only a 4-part story, and it's a classic. What are you going to butcher? What are you going to edit to take those 25 minutes out? When really you're just making a Tales of the TARDIS to make people go and find the original Sutekh, when, to be quite honest, they should be able to do it themselves anyway. Are we saying in this era, and remember, former teacher here, are we saying that people can't cope with a 25-minute episode? It has to be, we have to butcher everything down so it's acceptable. The whole story in 1 hour 15. I think we're patronizing the youngsters. But again, on the butchering front, I am concerned about this logic problem. Is George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame, they've got 8 seasons there, is he agreeing that they should re-edit, highlight, just make the highlights, have a little package where some of them sit on the throne and have a little a yarn, and they talk about stuff, and then they kind of take the whole season of 10 episodes and bring it down to, say, 1.5 episodes in length. Would they dare do that? No, they would not. Can you imagine if J.R. Tolkien was still alive and he was told, oh, kids aren't reading as much nowadays, people's attention spans are shorter, so can you actually condense your Hobbit classic into about 20 pages, please? Just for the kids. And, the Lord, the Lord of the Rings trilogy, can that really does have to be a trilogy? Oh, my God. But these are the same people with Discovery of Witches behind them. These are the same people who've done various trilogies from established writers. They wouldn't butcher them. Why does Doctor Who always have to be the plaything of RTD at the moment? I'm not convinced that you need to go down this road at all. And of course, we did have an issue with the Daleks in colour. I was desperate to see the Daleks in colour, just because I think it would make everybody see how amazing the early 60s Doctor Who was. I just wanted to see that. It would be like looking at it differently. I think it would look bigger budget. I was looking forward to it. But yes, we had problems there. Now, when we came to this, and when we come to the Pyramids of Mars omnibus, Russell Davies said he has a plan to remaster and colorize old stories from the 60s so that kids and younger fans can discover the show's original stories. As I said, you can't press a button on iPlayer. They can work iPhones, They can do gaming till 2 in the morning, and they can't find the Daleks in black and white 7 episodes on iPlayer. Really? Russell Davies said in Doctor Who magazine that the editing would prove to be more controversial than the colouring, and he was probably right, says the Doctor Who magazine. Well, we've got Pyramids of Mars to come in. There's no colorization issue here. Yes, they'll add special effects. I'm okay with that. I've seen it with the Blu-rays and I love it. It's the editing. The editing, as you know, is key. You're now the writer of the new classic, aren't you? Why are we allowing people to touch up, amend, reimagine, refocus classic Doctor Who? Why are we allowing that? I've just given you 2 examples of where you wouldn't dare touch Lord of the Rings and you wouldn't dare touch Game of Thrones. Why are we allowing it? Think about that. Why are we? Because RTD, in his defense of Chris Chibnall, will always say, oh, no, I'm not retconning Timeless Children. I'm not doing that. He's a mate of mine and it's now canon. But Robert Holmes is canon. His stories are canon. His characters are canon. Look what they did to the Sontarans. Terry Nation, great stories. Should they be butchered and reimagined by somebody who thinks that the younger generation can't cope and need things faster? Faster is one thing, but actually butchering it and changing it, reformatting it and adding details and dialogue is a different matter completely. So I'm not convinced, because these progressives seem to think one minute that they can lecture and educate their youngsters about, race and other stuff. Fine. Okay. So the youngsters need preaching on a daily basis in Doctor Who. However, they can't cope with a 25-minute episode. Well, work out which one it is, please. And what they're going to do with Pyramids of Mars, because 25 minutes might not sound much, but what little lovely moments are we going to lose? Quiet bits of dialogue. Are we going to lose this moment? Because as you know, RTD has he has issues with death, doesn't he, in the new series? We had a couple of deaths and Legend of Ruby Sunday, but not as many as you'd expect when you've got Sutekh around. Will certain things be edited out? As I said in my saloon only a week or so back, he's the new Mary Whitehouse. Suddenly, sonic screwdrivers are lethal weapons. So basically, I'm concerned about what will be edited out, and certainly little subplots and little moments. Maybe when they thought, this gamekeeper poacher keeps hitting the force field, little bits like that, and you see his face, that'll all go. Will the Scarman brothers, when they're trying to, the doctor's trying to work out, is all that going to go as well? are we going to lose those lovely moments of development, of plot, of characterization? Because as you know, RTD, it's all wham bam, thank you, ma'am, 45 minutes, done and dusted. So I am concerned about what they might do to our lovely, precious, classic, doesn't need touching up Pyramids of Mars. And of course, a lot of us have lived through this. I bet you those of a certain age have all had the Genesis of the Daleks album, or they've got it now on CD, or they've got, there's been this. Obviously, I would never have said no to this because in the days before video and before I was audio recording, this was my only kind of comfort blanket of old Doctor Who. And I would listen to that Genesis of the Daleks Omnibus album. I tell you what, 2 or 3 times a week. I know the beats of it, but that doesn't justify how butchered it was, and how it was a terrible treatment of Genesis of the Daleks. It's not a go-to now. It's just it was good for its time in the 70s. I've still got it now, of course, but it was appalling. I thought we were 50 years wiser on editing and cleverness and subtlety. And of course, we've got the Daleks in colour as form of what RTD, Benjamin Cook, and all the others do when they get their hands on a classic, on somebody else's work who happens to be dead, so there's no issue. But if it's Chris Chibnall, all the protection barriers go around the timeless children. I just wish there was some consistency. When we came down to this, remember, it was 7 episodes condensed down to 75 minutes. 75 minutes. This seems to be their go-to number, doesn't it? So 1 hour 15 for Daleks in colour, 7 episodes. Pyramids of Mars, 4 episodes down to 1 hour 15. Have they done some special research that Generation Z can't cope with longer, yet they can go and watch a 3-hour movie at the cinema, yet they can be gaming for 8 hours non-stop, yet they can be up in their bedroom on their iPhone all night? What, and suddenly it's just with old TV that they can't cope? Oh, for God's sake, grow up. So, the original 7-part serial was trimmed to improve the dynamics and the pacing for modern audiences, they said. In other words, they're changing it. New dialogue, remember, was added by Russell Davies to fill in gaps to keep the storyline moving. That is changing. That's vandalism. Would you touch up the Mona Lisa, for God's sake? So, the Daleks in colour, it was meant to be a fun take on Doctor Who history for fans with some flaws. The new material written by Russell Davies was dialogue by the Daleks for more precision in defining what they were up to. Yeah, remember that? Filling in any plot gaps in a shorter, faster cut. The recut, colorized version dealt with some sequences in a few minutes. I remember that pop sequence, which I thought was appalling, where all the suspense was up and down the Dalek corridors with Ian inside and all the rest of it was destroyed with them burning down that door to get to them when I think they're in the lift shaft. That was destroyed by making it all poppy. And yet, and as I've said, we don't seem to like Jeopardy in Doctor Who anymore, do we? I do, but it's just never there. But there were some, zips of editing, spending just enough time with every scene without them running far too long after the main drama of the scene is already over. There were colours, costumes, and a more dynamic score by Mark Ayres. As I said, I'm always happy with people behind the scenes doing stuff. But there were some unnecessary, abrupt flashbacks to the same earlier plot points. Remember that? As if you had a fish brain. The second half was rushed through the race against time climax, perhaps really too quickly. There wasn't room. Remember, I'm talking about edits. What happened to the Megalodon? Doctor Who's first ever alien creature. We never saw it. It was edited out. Why? Why? Some moments of character and charm that weren't necessary to the story, they think, such as the food machine sequence at the beginning. I mean, we weren't in the TARDIS. Remember, they just got straight out there. The retconning touches. Remember, there was no extermination said in the original, but we got it here. The cloister bells. Did we need that? All the mention of the Carlids. All of a sudden, you were getting things from the original story which weren't there, just to make it link with other stuff. We can cope with the fact that early days Doctor Who was different. But this is vandalism. This is cultural vandalism. We can't just do that. So, of course, we have got form with RTD and his crew touching up things that aren't theirs, and they have got no right to really be touching up. I'll be honest with you. So, Tales of the TARDIS. We've already had there, you've got your 6 episodes so far: Earthshock, Mind Robber, Vengeance on Varos, The Three Doctors, Time Meddler, and The Curse of Fenric. What I'm intrigued by, having said what I said about Generation Z, I don't know about you. I love to see the old companions and that, and I'm going to talk about those in a moment. But I'm not convinced about this memory TARDIS. I'm not convinced by the idea at all. I'm not happy with it because before you know it, somebody will say it's canon, and before we know it was stuffed. To me, the Tales of the TARDIS is a version of this. Those of a certain age will know we used to have Disney time, bank holidays, Easter, stuff like that. You go, oh, there's a Disney time on. And you get loads of good clips from classic Disney. And you had a celebrity introduce them all, although they sometimes rattled on a little bit too much. And you thought, can we get to the next item, please? They were doing too much ego. They were in some factory, or they were in some studio, or they were walking around some kind of theme park. And you were going, come on, away, show me Jungle Book. And that was our introduction to a celebrity introducing clips. So we had Disney time, and I think this is how they're doing Tales of the TARDIS. Really, remember when you used to watch stuff like the Golden Girls, and all of a sudden you got an episode where they all sat around the table again. They said, hey, remember that Christmas when there was a storm? And then you get clips and highlights from the whole season. It was just a kind of re-edited job of an old load of episodes, but they put them under a theme. Remember that? Friends did the same. And you thought, oh, that's cheap. And I was always dissatisfied with that, even though I loved Friends and even though I loved the Golden Girls. I know, get me. Yeah, that's where I think Tales of the TARDIS is coming from. This memory TARDIS nonsense. Okay. I mean, we have had some great scenes. It's lovely to see Peter Davison back with Janet Fielding, but I don't get this obsession with Adric. They had a little moment in Time Flight, and then are you like me? After that, they kind of got on with their life. But suddenly, in Power of the Doctor, Adric. In the Tales of the TARDIS, Adric. There seem to be is this emotional kind of resonance nowadays that we haven't quite got over it, have we? Actually, can we talk about Adric? Honestly, come on. I mean, was he that important? So, I'm not convinced by this memory TARDIS twaddle and where it fits in and how it's going to fit in between Legend of Ruby Sunday and Empire of Death. It does concern me. Why don't we just get on with Pyramids of Maz, which, as you know, you can press the button on iPlayer now. You don't have to wait for this. And since we're not going to, it sounds like, get anybody from the past and have a lovely nostalgic 3 minutes, just get on with it, will you, please? Yeah, we've had Fraser Hines, Wendy Padbury. I am not knocking seeing them. But part of me thinks, I see them on the Blu-rays when you can have a lovely interview with them. I see them at conventions if you're lucky enough to go to the conventions. And they go into detail. I remember watching a 60s panel with Peter Purvis talking about, William Hartnell, defending him, and talking about, how things changed as he was Stephen Taylor. And of course, he played 1 or 2 different parts. And I'm talking about, William Hartnell struggling with some lines and how they worked around that. If I want to hear Peter Purvis, it's great to see him talking about it at conventions on Blu-rays. If you really want him back, get him on the show. Give him a really good story. However, I'm not arguing that in this current iteration, I want RTD and them to get their mitts on every single blooming character. Because when we've had Mel back, and I love Bonnie Lanford, why is her character bonkers now? I don't agree with that. You see, you get a sudden reformatting of them and a reimagining of them, which I disagree with wholeheartedly. So I don't really want them touching this, even in these little moments. Actually, some of our Blu-ray trailers are better, aren't they? Because you'll get to see Katie Manning as Joe Grant talking to 2 kids and then with a baby sea devil. I can live with that better than this version of Katie Manning talking about Sarah Jane. Oh, come on, just get on with the 3 doctors that you're about to introduce. So I've never been convinced by this. I think it could be done differently. Like I said, get them on the main show anyway, although I think we've got to be careful with that. Give them proper stories. Spin-offs. I mean, you talk about spin-offs. But I think truly what I'm saying is I think we need to move forward. We need to move forward and stop obsessively looking back, especially in this iteration. I mean, we're all wanting Susan back. That's been a talk of this whole season because of her link with the original. But how will she be written? Be careful what you wish for. I am very uncomfortable with some of the reimagining of the characters. I've mentioned Mel being called bonkers and this mad auntie as one. The first Doctor being depicted as sexist with Bill. Nah. Ian asking in that scene in The Power of the Doctor, asking what she, you said she. And I'm thinking, I don't want our Ian Chesterton infected with all this weird Doctor Who's gone down the walk path. Don't do this, please. It's spoiling it. I didn't want to hear those words. And alas, no more William Russell, bless him. Be careful what you wish for. And trust has gone. Let's be honest. Trust has gone. If I said to you the sonic screwdriver is now a lethal weapon, do you trust this man to bring back Stephen Taylor? Or to write even 3 minutes of anybody from Classic Who? Davros has been reimagined, remember? Davros. I fear him ever being on the series again. What about... well, we've already mentioned the Daleks. I dread the Daleks coming back. I dread the Cybermen coming back, because there won't be men, will there? Oh, I just dread what they're going to do with the series classic characters. Look at the retcon of how the TARDIS arrives. No. Look at the retcon of UNIT. It's no longer a secret organization. It seems to have a child slave labor scheme. It has a very high DEI policy like the BBC and Disney. It seems to have... I mean, it's a target for anybody, isn't it? But they're not very secure. I mean, they won't let Carla Sunder arrive to be like the man for the day job. But the TARDIS can arrive with the worst villain in the universe, just hitching a ride on the back. Is this why, with the series said Cosmic Joyride, it's actually been a Cosmic Joyride for Sutekh? I really don't know. But I digress. But what I am actually saying is, my concern is that you've got in the Pyramids of Mars reimagining, Omnibus, shorter, new special effects. Who's in charge of the editing? Who thinks that these younger people can't cope anyway when they can cope with, like I say, 8 hours video gaming and all other stuff? Why do we have to do this to our brand, our Doctor Who? Leave it alone. Stop touching other people's material. Stop spoiling it, because they are changing it. You can't say that the Daleks in colour is the Daleks 7-episoder. They've changed things. They've reimagined what Terry Nation was trying to do. They've added things that Terry Nation only thought of later. I'm sorry, but I like to see the development in a classic program. Not everything was thought up on day one. And it's interesting to see if you're interested. But I'm sorry, but I don't see why our program has to be completely reformatted because there's a hunch. And it is only a hunch. It's only a hunch. I've worked with Generation Z, so I really don't know where this evidence is coming from, that you need something for 1 hour, 15 minutes. It has to be all jazzy and fast and wee. If you're really bothered about the younger generation being educated, if you're really bothered about the younger generation learning, don't dumb it down. As I said in my saloon yesterday, go higher. Give them difficult Genesis of the Daleks dialogue. Don't pitch it to them like a Teletubbies version of Davros. Don't do that. So I'm really concerned that this lovely news, because remember, I'm a Doctor Who fan. I love nostalgia too. And tomorrow night we'll do our midweek special when we will be looking at the best unit stories. And of course, we'll be looking at the Pyramids of Mars. All 4 episodes. No editing. I'm concerned at what they're going to do to it again, when I don't think there's any reason at all to touch 1 minute of it. There isn't. All you need is to advertise, to go to iPlayer where you'll see the original Sutekh. And if people are bothered, they'll look. If they're not bothered, they won't look. But they don't need this new dish, John the Baptist's head on a plate. You don't need to do a new version of anything. So, and by the way, let me just finish on this. If we're talking about editing and butchering and protecting things, do you want the people who will edit the Pyramids of Mars now and edited the Daleks in colour, the same people who wrote The Legend of Ruby Sunday, and those first 10 minutes could easily have been edited out because it was just a hug fest? Oh, I love you. How are you? How are you? Was that necessary? Should we just get on with some story writing? These people who thought that was valuable for, only an 8 episode season, 10 minutes of hugging and kissing and, hey, I love you. Oh, I miss your dad and all that stuff. They're in charge of Pyramids of Mars now. Oh, no, 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 no. Not happy. So, hence why today I have put out this saloon to say, don't loot and plunder the classics, RTD. Leave them alone. I'm not convinced by your Tales of the TARDIS idea. This memory TARDIS looks as though you're trying to crank it into the main program and do another spoiler. I'm not into it. I'm not happy. Leave well alone. Concentrate on the day job. Get that right. And leave Classic Who alone and stop plundering it and looting it and nicking stuff. 1 minute you say that Shooty Gatwa and the cast can't talk about old doctors, and the next minute you're plundering like hell. No wonder Rachel on our channel last Sunday in the review of Legend of Ruby Sunday said, behind the eyes of Shooty, you couldn't see he recognised Sutekh. It was as if he didn't know who Sutekh was. Let's get the day job right. Let's do that. Thanks for listening. Give us a subscribe if you can. Come on. Because there may be a day I'm not here. Because have you noticed? The same spies are here. I think they're recording everything I say, and I think Bad Wolf will be onto me. So I better go in haste. Forget whether I'm paying for the round. Forget whether, I've got my smoothie here. Tis a milk bar after all. But I'm going to dash off. See you soon. Midweek special tomorrow, 7 p.m. Don't forget, I'll be around again because I think it's going to be one of those weeks. Thanks for joining us. Click the like. Get our subscriptions to 700, and I'll be a happy man. See you then. Time Agent Brendan checking out.